Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. You are live with Endeavor Gaming, and today we're going to be taking a look at my first Surgical Strikes build. So let's just go on ahead and get into it. So here we are outside of Earth Space Dock, and this is my first Surgical Strikes build. I know almost nothing about how it works or how to make it work, but we're gonna take a quick look at it and see if Surgical Strikes is really as bad as everyone says. Personally, I've already flown the ship a little bit and I've come to enjoy it quite a bit. So first, let's go over some of our ship equipment. I'm running pretty standard stuff for a phaser build. A lot of the stuff that you saw on my beam overload build over on the Inquiry. We're running the dark matter quantum torpedo in front, the phaser wide angle, and then 3 sensor link dual beam banks. I had been switching them out for the single sensor link beam arrays or the advanced phaser beam arrays, but I found I was able to get just enough turn rate to justify using these dual beam banks. So we'll keep them on for now. The deflector, normal colony deflector, gotta have that coal crit. We're running the prevailing innervated impulse engine so we can get extra boosts of speed when activating firing modes like our torpedo spread and our surgical strikes. Warp core, we're using the Terran Task Force quantum capacitor warp core. It's just one I decided to throw on, change it up a little bit, and I can get 7.5% of my weapon power to my shields as bonus power, so might as well. And we're running the revolutionary covariant shield array. For those of you that ran the event, I freaking love this shield. 7.1 directed energy weapon damage that's based off of your aux power. Even if it's low, every little bit helps. In the rear, I went with my sensor link omnidirectional beam. I just have not been able to escape it yet. And, it just sort of is what it is. And also in the back, we're running 2 Federation phaser turrets. 32nd century refit, to help just a little bit with cooldowns, and I'll sort of get into why that's important a little bit later. Universal console slot, we've just got a locator in here, and I'll get into that a little bit more. Engineering consoles, weaponized helical torsion, phaser damage and crit severity, obviously. Binaural infusion circuits, crit severity again. Hostile acquisition, this is for a little bit more oomph to my accuracy, because, every shot I miss is 0 damage. Tachykinetic kinetic converter, I don't really need to explain this one. Crit severity, crit chance. Domino, phaser damage, and also its clicky is so very nice. And firing cycle haste is always a nice to have, if not a must have. Assimilated module, again, crit chance and crit severity, gotta go with it. DPRM, I can't even say anything about this console. It's awesome. There are very few builds that don't have this console on it at this point. And then for tactical, we're running the Lorca's console, again for that crit chance, and then 3 exploiters. So I'm leaning pretty heavily into severity here. And that's because I want to make the most use of surgical strikes here. So, just to go into it, whenever you activate surgical strikes 3, energy weapons are dealing 220% of their normal damage, so it's kind of akin to beam overload in that idea, but you're also getting 32 additional accuracy and 32% crit chance. So with all that extra crit chance, it really opens up your ability to lean very heavily into crit severity, which is what I'm trying to do on this build. Let's see, going into our starship traits here, we're running Exitus Active Probat. I'm a huge fan of this trait. It comes off of the Section 31 Intel Science Destroyer. Whenever I throw up my Intel teams here, I'm getting stealth, bonus weapon damage, and control expertise. Emergency weapon cycle. Again, this one is actually one that needs to come off now that I look at it, because I did make some changes to the build lately, and I don't have emergency power to weapons anymore, or critical systems for that matter. So those can both come off, and we can decide on some better traits to use. So obviously we're already running Promise of Ferocity, activating tactical bridge officer abilities. You can get some bonus weapon damage. Also got strike from the shadows, buffs for foes not targeting you, getting some crit chance and bonus damage when you attack a target that isn't targeting you, which I hope happens a lot since, again, Intel team plus Exetus Active Probat equals, hopefully, less of me getting targeted. Because I don't like getting targeted. I'll probably throw on supercharged weapons, so when I'm firing my torpedoes I'm getting 10% damage, but more importantly, more crits. This build is going to lean as heavily into crits as I can, without just actively giving up other stuff. Let's see. What else could we throw on that might help us in our endeavor to not die? And just in general, not get targeted, blown up, things of that nature. I would say here, maybe throwing on something like Honored Dead if we're having trouble with survivability. Might be a good one since we're going to be hopping into some things later. So, let's go with that. Make sure we actually save our loadout here. For our bridge officers, obviously, like I said, we're running our 2 intel teams so we can have that so nice stealth and bonus damage from Exetus Active Probat. We're running Ox to Bat on here for our cooldown reduction, which also means I get to take this off for once. Now, I'm not entirely sure what I would put in its place, but I do kind of have the problem of not being able to get surgical strikes off enough. And that is one of the drawbacks of it. Unlike things like Fire at Will or Scouter Volley or Beam Overload, there isn't a trait that extends the duration or directly lowers the cooldown of surgical strikes. So when you click it, it activates, and that's the end of it. So it kind of makes things harder, but sometimes you just gotta work with what you got. So I think I might just trade this out for a Julian Bashir here and get Very Cold in Space in its place. That might help us a little bit more. And hopefully, famous last words, we don't miss our Photonic Officer all that much. And let's see. Going into our Duty Officer roster, it's pretty simple. I'm running one Borg Bridge Officer. I don't really want to run this one because I can't use the exotic damage as much, but the critical severity from science abilities, for now, it's gonna be there. We've got an Energy Weapons Officer that gives us shield power when using energy weapons, and then we've got crit severity buff on firing projectiles. And then the last 3 spots are taken up by our Ox to Bat technicians. So now that we've got everything in order, let's take it into something and see how it performs. We're going to go in on Elite, we're going to take it into a Wanted, and we'll just see how it goes. I will say, I am a huge fan of the way this ship looks. I got into Trek from the Kelvin films, so being able to take the ship out and have something different on it is definitely fun. So let's enter combat and see how it does against the Kazon.
Entered an area controlled by the viewer. Looks like our fight got them to notice us. Let's go over and ask if they're involved. They might come out of hiding.
So, there's the first patrol. I'd say that went pretty well. Again, what I feel is different about this ship is that there isn't a lot of visual difference in the bolts between surgical strikes versus non-surgical strikes. But if you go back and you look at your logs while you're running through this, it'll become very apparent when you're running surgical strikes. Like right now, with a crit severity of 314 and a crit chance of 40%, these things are hitting hard. And it is oh so very fun. So, let's go ahead and warp out. Normally, I would take a ship into a survivability test for this, but I'm not going to do that with this ship, and I'm just going to make an aside here. Surgical Strikes is not the best firing mode. It's not the most meta, and it's not the most powerful, but it's different, and it's fun, and having a unique build on a ship like this is always something good to go for. So, instead of doing a review on a build or a ship, this is more dedicated to the more fun side of STO. Coming up with new things, trying them out, seeing how they hold up. And this build will get you through any advanced TFO. It'll start to show some problems if you go into ISEs and things like that, but if you want something different, something you could take into a TFO and just have work that isn't beam overload, or fire at will, or scatter volley, or even rapid fire, here's one worth trying out. As always, if you want to take a look at some more builds like the legendary D7, feel free to check out the rest of the channel. We've got builds on the D7, the Crossfield, and the Einstein class with a fire at will build. Have a great day, and remember to keep calm and game on.